love? Welcome to Amber's Farmy Kitchen. Today we are going to be making my absolute favorite focaccia recipe. If you don't know me, my name is Amber, and this is Queen of Belonging, a space where we bring together all of the tools and wisdom to help you live your most nourishing, fulfilling, and meaningful life. And we do this through food, through somatic practice, through ritual, and all the things that help us to build a sense of safety, comfort, and health and wellness inside of our bodies. So let's get started. The first thing that we want to do when we're making any kind of food is always light a candle. So let's light our sacred fire. Okay, so what you're going to need for this focaccia recipe is you're going to need 4 cups of flour, a couple of teaspoons of some delicious salt. I like to use a flaky salt. Right now, I'm using this beautiful salt I got when I was in Yelapa, Mexico. It's my favorite salt, but you can just find some kind of flaky salt. I'm also using today some dried sage and za'atar from my farm, which we harvested last year, so it's dry. If you have fresh herbs like fresh rosemary or fresh thyme or fresh whatever kind of herbs, you can really use any herbs. This is going to go on top of the focaccia, but dried herbs work great if you don't have fresh ones like me. You're going to want 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, 4 tablespoons of olive oil, and we're going to add a little bit of onion powder and garlic powder to the mix. Now, if you're not somebody who likes really flavorful stuff, you can skip the garlic and onion powder. I really love my focaccia to be really flavorful, so I like to add garlic and onion powder into the focaccia dough. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make our dough. So what we're going to do is you're going to put your 4 cups of flour into the bowl. And then you're going to add your 2 teaspoons of salt. I have a little bit more than 2 teaspoons. Sometimes I add a little bit more than 2 teaspoons because, like I said, I like my bread to be really flavorful. And when we're using bread flour, and bread flour really, I find, soaks up a lot of flavor. So I kind of like to add a little bit of extra flavor into the dough. One of the things I forgot to mention is that when we're making this bread, we're using bread flour, and that's just going to give us a much fluffier bread. You can use regular flour too, but I love to use bread flour. And then we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. I love it. It's very convenient. As a mother of 3, I love for my food to be delicious, fun to make, and convenient. So we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. Oh my gosh, I'm just realizing I'm not even wearing my cooking apron right now. I always forget this, and it always happens when I'm wearing white. So we need to go put on our cooking apron. Very important so we don't get ourselves dirty. Wearing an apron is very new to me. I'm used to staining everything. So let's get our apron on. Perfect. So now that we have all of our dry ingredients in the bowl, we're just going to give it a little bit of a whisk. So we want 2 cups of lukewarm water. You can do this by like boiling 1.5 cups of water and then adding 1.5 cups of cold water. I honestly just use lukewarm water from the sink. I often have a bunch of kids running around when I'm making this, so I don't really have time to do all of that, but it's really up to you. So I'm going to add 3 cups of lukewarm water. And we're gonna mix it up until we get a nice sticky dough. The dough's starting to look pretty good. We still have a little bit of flour to mix up, but overall it's looking pretty good. Okay, our dough is looking nice and sticky. Perfect, just how we want it to look. Okay, now that we have our beautiful sticky dough ball, we're going to rub just a little bit of oil on top of the dough. And what this is going to do is keep it from forming like a crust. We don't want it to be crusty. We want it to be nice and moist while it goes through its first rise. I'm just going to do a little of the oil. And then you can take your hand and we're just going to rub that oil around the top of the dough. so that it's nice and coated. This is looking great. Nice and coated. So now you're going to get a damp cloth napkin or tea towel to cover your bowl. What we're going to do is we're going to leave this on the counter to rise for about 1.5 to 2 hours. And then we'll come back to it to finish the rest of the recipe. Okay, we're back. We let our dough rise for about 2 hours and now it's double in size. So let's take a look. Look at that dough. It looks so beautiful. So we are going to be using a 9 by 13 inch bread pan if you have one. I'm just using this glass pan. My mom calls it cucina povera, which is the poor people's kitchen in Italian. And so it's basically just, we cook using what we have. And this is what I have for a bread pan, 9 by 13. So next what we're gonna do is we're going to add some oil into our pan to grease it. That's good. And we're going to, you could use butter to grease. I often just use olive oil, but you can use butter if that's easier for you. So we just oiled it. And now we're going to pour a bit more oil into the center. And the reason that we're adding like another tablespoon to the center of the pan is that this flour, what I've found with bread flour is it just soaks up a lot of oil, so it'll stick to the pan if you don't have enough oil. So we're extra oiling right now. So our next step is going to be to deflate the dough. But what I like to do before deflating the dough is I actually like to put my seasonings in and then deflate the dough so I can mix them into the dough. So we're going to add a little bit of our seasonings. So first, I'm going to get our garlic. I think I'm going to use 3 cloves inside the garlic today. You can use however many you want based on your desired garlic preferences. Another thing I like to do sometimes for even extra flavor is before making, this is when I have like a lot of time and maybe I'm making this for someone other than my family or my family and I just have extra time to be really fancy, is that I will actually saute some of the garlic and then I'll heat it in oil to create kind of a garlic oil infusion. And then I'll strain it, set that aside. I'll use that oil for all of the things that we've just done with the, and then I will use that kind of like crusted garlic in the bread here. So that's what I do sometimes, but today we're just going to do some fresh garlic. We're gonna put it into our little squeezy thingamabob and we're going to squeeze it right into the top of the bowl. So we got our 3 cloves of garlic. I'm then going to add, I'm going to kind of crumble up some of our dried sage leaves. And we'll add some of those in here as well. I find this dough to be very, very forgiving, so you can kind of add quite a bit of seasoning without it being overpowering, which is really great. Then we're going to add a little bit of onion powder, probably just like half a teaspoon. Just a little sprinkle. And I'm going to add a little more garlic powder because I love garlic. And then I'm also actually going to add a little salt. If you're salt sensitive and you don't like too much salt, you could skip this step. But I find this dough really absorbs a lot. So I'm going to add some salt in there as well. Okay, now that we've got all of our seasonings, we are going to deflate our dough. So we're going to get our fork and we're going to just around the edges of the bowl, we're going to start to pull it in and we'll turn our bowl while we're pulling it to begin to deflate the dough. Our dough is now deflated. I'm going to kind of pull it off a little bit more just to make sure it's not stuck to the sides of the bowl. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the dough out of our bowl. We're going to put it into our pan. I'm going to use my hands to really fold this dough ball over a little bit before I bring it into, very lightly. We don't want to overwork this because we don't want it to get rough, but I'm just going to fold this dough ball over just so that all of the seasonings don't spill out once I put it into our pan. So now we're just gonna plop this, we're gonna bring this into our pan, and we are going to roll it into the oil to form our dough ball and just get it nice and oiled up. We have all those delicious seasonings in the middle of the dough. Okay, so we have our nice dough ball now in the pan. It's a rough dough ball. That's great. We don't want a smooth one. We want it to be a little bit rough. So we're going to leave that in the pan like this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let this rough dough ball rest for about 30 to 45 minutes. And then we're going to come back to shape it and cook it. Okay, so we let our bread sit for 30 minutes. My bread actually sat for maybe 2 or 3 hours because I had to go pick my kids up from school in the middle of it, but that's all right. That just means it's going to be extra fluffy. And so now what we're going to do is we're first going to take our leftover 1 or 2 tablespoons of olive oil and we're going to rub it over the top of the bread. So let's get our olive oil, rub that 2 tablespoons over the bread. You can use your hand a little to kind of get it all over the surface. It's okay if yours doesn't look this big and bubbly. Mine sat out for a few hours instead of 30 minutes. Okay, perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put some of our herbs and spices and seasoning on top of our bread. So I love to put a lot inside, as you saw, but we also want to put some outside. And just as a reminder, I feel like bread flour absorbs so much flavor that this bread can really take a lot of flavoring. So we're going to take our sage and our leftover za'atar, or if you have fresh rosemary or thyme or whatever herbs you're using, dried or fresh. Fresh is always better, but I, like I said, don't have any fresh on hand right now. So I'm going to be using dried, and we are just going to sprinkle our herbs onto the top of our bread. I'm also going to add some extra fresh garlic because I love to have fresh garlic on top. I love to have fresh garlic inside. I just love garlic so much. So if you love garlic too, then you might also want to put garlic on top of your bread. But if you're not super into garlic, then you can totally skip the extra garlic. Yummy. Okay, so now comes the funnest part, which is the dimpling. So we're going to take our fingers and we're going to press them into the bread to create dimples, and you want to kind of get your fingers all the way down to the bottom of the pan because once the bread cooks, they kind of like come back up. So you really want to get those dimples nice and deep. So you're going to take both hands and just press them in there. Create some nice dimples. Ooh, this is a nice bubbly focaccia. Look at all those beautiful bubbles in there. Isn't that so nice? Love it. Yeah, mine is really bubbly because I let it sit for 2 hours, but 30 minutes will do for this one. Okay, now the last step before putting it in the oven is we're going to put some flaky salt over the top. So today I'm going to use Maldon salt. You really don't want to use like a fine ground salt or not a flaky salt because it just doesn't come out the same. So Maldon is great for flaky salt. So we're just going to sprinkle some of this salt over the top. Beautiful. Okay, so now we are ready to put our focaccia in the oven. We're going to put it in the oven at 425 for about 25 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 35 minutes. We're going to see how the focaccia is looking. That looks delicious. Look at all that beautiful, yummy, juicy, crusty, herby bread. While the focaccia is cooling, let's just make a little olive oil, salt. I don't think I have red pepper flakes right now, but I'm just gonna do olive oil, some pepper. All right, let's give it a try and see how it is. All right, let's taste this delicious bread. Look at that. Can you see all that steam coming off of it? It looks so good. It's so delicious. Look at how fluffy that bread is. So fluffy. with the perfect crisp outside. I'm gonna be honest, we could have cooked it for maybe like 5 more minutes, but it is so good. Perfect focaccia every time. Delicious. You gotta make this bread. It's the best. Thank you so much for making a delicious focaccia with me. Please like and subscribe if you love this recipe. Share it with your friends. And keep following the channel where we are just really building a nourishing, safe, inviting, loving, healthy place for us to live and thrive and be in community together from the inside out. I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy your focaccia. So good.